The vase shattered like a gunshot, and Juliet's breath stopped. She'd been in this billionaire's penthouse for exactly 3 hours, long enough to know the crystal she just destroyed cost more than her entire life back in Kenya, long enough to realize the employment agency had lied about everything, but not long enough to understand that the man stepping out of that elevator, 6 feet of tailored danger with a scar cutting through his perfect face, wasn't looking at the broken glass on his marble floor. He was looking at her body. And when his eyes finally met hers, cold and hungry and absolutely certain, he said 5 words that made her blood run ice cold. "I will make you mine tonight." Not tomorrow, not eventually. Tonight. She should have run. Any sane woman would have bolted for the door. But her little brother was dying 4,000 miles away. The surgery money was impossible. And this monster in an expensive suit had just looked at her curves like he'd already made his decision. So when Juliet heard herself say, "I'm not that kind of woman," and watched his lips curve into a smile that promised he'd never let her go, she realized the crystal vase wasn't the only thing that had just shattered in this room. Was it? Before the story starts, take 1 second to subscribe and drop a comment. It genuinely helps this channel grow and reach more people who love deep, emotional stories like this. And while you're here, tell us where you're listening from so we know who we're telling these stories. For the crystal vase shattered against the marble floor, and Juliet Amondi froze with the cleaning cloth still in her hand. She'd been in America for exactly 14 days, in New York City for 6, and in this enormous penthouse for barely 3 hours. The employment agency had promised her a simple housekeeping job with good pay. They had not mentioned that her new employer was the most feared man in the city's underground world. Juliet stared at the broken pieces scattered across the white marble, like drops of frozen blood. Her heart hammered against her ribs. In Kenya, breaking something valuable in a wealthy person's home could cost her the entire month's salary. Here in this strange country, she had no idea what punishment awaited her. "I am so sorry," she whispered to the empty room, kneeling quickly to pick up the sharp fragments. "Please, I will pay for it. I promise." The elevator doors at the far end of the penthouse suddenly opened with a soft chime. Juliet's head snapped up, her dark eyes wide with panic. The agency had told her that Mr. Choi would not return until evening. It was barely noon. She was not prepared to meet her employer yet, especially not while kneeling in a pool of broken glass and spilled water. Heavy footsteps echoed across the polished floor. Expensive leather shoes came into her line of vision, stopping just inches from the mess she had created. "Stand up!" The voice was deep, cold, and carried an accent that made each word sound like a command rather than a request. Juliet's hands trembled as she carefully placed the glass pieces on the floor and rose to her feet, keeping her eyes lowered respectfully. "Look at me." She hesitated for a heartbeat, then slowly lifted her gaze. Daewon Choi stood before her like a figure carved from ice and shadows. He was tall, much taller than she had expected, with broad shoulders that filled out his black suit perfectly. His face was sharp and beautiful in a dangerous way, with dark eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul. His black hair was styled back from his forehead, and a thin scar ran along his left cheekbone, giving him an edge that made her breath catch. But it was not fear that made her forget to breathe. It was the way he was looking at her. Those cold, dark eyes had suddenly changed. They moved slowly from her face down to her curves, which her simple black uniform dress could not quite hide. Juliet was not a small woman. She had the full figure that was celebrated in her homeland, but often made her feel out of place in this new country. Her hips were wide, her waist curved inward, and her body was soft and womanly in every way. She had never seen a man look at her the way Daewon Choi was looking at her now. His expression had transformed from cold indifference to something hot and hungry. His jaw tightened. His hands, which had been casually in his pockets, slowly came out and hung at his sides as if he needed to physically stop himself from reaching for her. "What is your name?" His voice had dropped lower, almost rough. Juliet Omondi, sir. I am your new housekeeper. I apologize for the vase. I will replace it from my salary. He did not seem to hear her words about the vase. Instead, he moved closer, circling around her slowly, like a wolf studying its prey. Juliet's pulse raced. She could feel the heat radiating from his body as he moved behind her, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more masculine. How old are you? Juliet Omondi? 26, sir. Are you married? No, sir. Boyfriend? No, sir. Her voice came out smaller now. I came to America alone. He completed his circle and stood in front of her again. This time, he was much closer than before, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. His gaze dropped to her full lips, then moved lower to where her pulse beat rapidly at her throat. Perfect, he said softly, and there was something dark and promising in that single word. Juliet took a small step backward. Sir, I should clean up this mess and continue with my duties. Your duties have changed. She blinked in confusion. I do not understand. Daewon reached out and gently caught a strand of her thick, dark hair between his fingers. The gesture was intimate, possessive, and completely inappropriate. Juliet knew she should pull away, but her body refused to move. I will make you mine tonight. The words hung in the air between them like a physical thing. Juliet's eyes widened in shock. For a moment, she could not believe she had heard him correctly. Then anger rushed through her, hot and fierce, replacing her initial fear. She stepped back sharply, yanking her hair from his fingers. I am not that kind of woman, Mr. Choi. I came here to work as a housekeeper, not to be disrespected. Instead of being angry at her rejection, his lips curved into a small, dangerous smile. I am not disrespecting you. I am telling you my intention. Your intention is wrong and will not happen, Juliet said firmly, even though her legs felt weak. I need this job desperately, but not desperately enough to sell my dignity. If you cannot treat me with respect, I will leave right now. She turned toward the small room where she had left her single suitcase, ready to pack and go. She had no other options, no other job prospects, and her brother Jabari back in Kenya needed money for his heart surgery within the next 2 months. But she would sleep on the streets before she became any man's plaything. Wait. Something in his tone made her pause. No one has ever said no to me before, Daewon said quietly. There was wonder in his voice, and something else she could not identify. No one has ever walked away from me. Then perhaps it is time someone did, Juliet replied without turning around. $50,000. She turned slowly, her heart skipping. What? Your salary. $50,000 per month. He watched her carefully. The agency told me you have a sick brother in Kenya. They mentioned you needed money urgently for medical treatment. Juliet's mouth went dry. $50,000 was more money than she had ever dreamed of earning. In 3 months, she could pay for Jabari's surgery completely and still have money left over. But the price was clear. I cannot, she whispered, even as her heart broke at the thought of losing such an opportunity. I am not asking you to sleep with me for money, Daewon said, and for the first time, his voice gentled slightly. I am offering you the salary because you will be living in a dangerous man's home, and that deserves fair compensation. What I said earlier about making you mine, that was wrong. I apologize. Juliet studied his face, trying to determine if he was telling the truth. His expression had shifted again, becoming more controlled, more careful. But those dark eyes still held that heat when they looked at her. Why would you pay me so much? She asked suspiciously. Because I can. Because I want you to stay. He paused. And because I meant what I said, but I will do it the right way. What does that mean? It means I will win you properly. He moved closer again, but this time stopped at a respectful distance. 100 days, Juliet Omondi. Give me 100 days to make you want me the way I want you. If after that time you still wish to leave, I will pay. you everything owed and let you go without argument. And if I say no to this arrangement, then you work as a normal housekeeper. I keep my distance, and you still receive the full salary. The choice is completely yours." It was a trap. Juliet knew it was a trap. Rich, powerful men like Daewon Choi did not make such offers without hidden strings attached. But when she thought of Jabari's face, of his weak smile when she had video called him from the airport before her flight, she knew she had no real choice. 90 days, she countered, lifting her chin. "And you must promise that my job is not dependent on whether I develop feelings for you or not." His smile grew wider, showing teeth. 90 days, and I promise your job is secure regardless. Do we have an agreement?" Juliet took a deep breath. "We have an agreement." "Good." He extended his hand for a handshake. When she placed her smaller hand in his fingers closed around hers warmly, and he held on longer than necessary. "I should warn you, Juliet. I always get what I want, and I have never wanted anything as much as I want you." "Then you should prepare yourself for disappointment, Mr. Choi," she replied, pulling her hand free, "because I am not something to be won or owned." He laughed then, a real laugh that transformed his cold face into something almost boyish. "We will see. Now about that vase. It was ugly anyway. I am glad you broke it." As he walked away toward his study, Juliet stood among the broken crystal and realized her life had just become far more complicated than she had ever imagined. The worst part was not his wealth or his dangerous reputation. The worst part was that despite everything, despite his arrogance and his shocking proposition, she had felt something spark to life inside her when his hand had touched hers. That night, as she lay in her comfortable bedroom on the other side of the enormous penthouse, Juliet heard footsteps stop outside her door. She held her breath, waiting. But Daewon did not knock. Instead, something slid under the door with a soft whisper. She waited until the footsteps retreated before climbing out of bed and picking up the folded paper. The note was written in elegant handwriting. Day 1 of 90. "Sleep well, beautiful Juliet. Tomorrow I begin showing you who I really am, and I promise you will be surprised." Juliet's hand shook slightly as she read the words again. What had she gotten herself into? More importantly, why did part of her feel excited rather than afraid? She folded the note carefully and placed it in her drawer, then returned to bed. But sleep did not come easily. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daewon's intense gaze and felt again the electricity that had sparked between them. 90 days suddenly seemed like a very long time. Or perhaps not long enough. Morning sunlight streamed through the enormous windows of the penthouse, and Juliet woke to the smell of something delicious cooking. She sat, up confused, checking her phone. It was 6 in the morning. She had set her alarm for 5:30 to begin her housekeeping duties, but somehow she had slept through it. Panic made her move quickly. She dressed in her uniform and rushed out to the kitchen, apologies already forming on her lips. But the sight that greeted her made all her words disappear. Daewon stood at the massive stove, wearing black pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He was cooking, and from the looks of the multiple dishes laid out on the counter, he had been at it for a while. The hard, dangerous man from yesterday had been replaced by someone who looked almost domestic. "You are awake," he said without turning around. "Sit. Breakfast is almost ready." "I should be cooking for you," Juliet protested. "That is my job. Today I cook. Tomorrow you can fight me for the kitchen if you wish." He plated the food and brought it to the dining table. "Have you ever tried Korean food?" "No, sir." "Stop calling me sir. My name is Daewon." He pulled out a chair for her. "Sit." Juliet sat cautiously, eyeing the spread before her. There was rice, some kind of soup with vegetables, grilled meat, and several small dishes of things she did not recognize. Everything looked beautiful and smelled even better. "Why are you doing this?" she asked as he sat across from her. "Day 2, he replied simply. "I told you I would show you who I really am. The world sees a monster. I want you to see the man." They ate in silence for a few minutes. The food was incredible, each bite better than the last. Juliet could not help the small sound of pleasure that escaped her when she tried the soup. Daewon's eyes darkened at the sound. "You like it?" "It is delicious," she admitted. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" "My mother taught me before she died. She said a man who cannot feed himself is not truly independent." His voice had gone soft with memory. "She died when I was 16. Car accident." "I am sorry," Juliet said quietly. "My mother also passed when I was young. Malaria. My father raised me and my brother alone." Something shifted in the air between them. A connection formed over shared loss, over understanding what it meant to grow up without a mother's love. "Tell me about your brother," Daewon said. "The one who needs surgery." Juliet's face brightened immediately. "Jabari. He is 19, smart and funny, and the best person I know. He was born with a weak heart. The doctors said he needs surgery soon, or he will not live to see 25. That is why I came to America. The surgery costs more money than my entire family could earn in 10 years. "You love him very much." "He is everything to me. My father died 3 years ago, so now it is just Jabari and me. I promised my father I would take care of him." Her voice cracked slightly. "I have to keep that promise." Daewon studied her for a long moment. "You are a good sister. Jabari is lucky to have you." The rest of breakfast passed with easier conversation. Juliet found herself relaxing despite her determination to keep her guard up. Daewon asked questions about Kenya, about her childhood, about her dreams. He listened intently to every answer, as if her words were precious. When they finished eating, he stood and began clearing the dishes. Juliet jumped up to help, but he waved her away. "Today is your day off," he announced. "I just started working yesterday. I do not need a day off." "Nevertheless, you have one. Go explore the city. Buy yourself something nice. I have left a credit card on the entry table with your name on it." Juliet's eyes widened. "I cannot accept that." "It is not a gift. Consider it an advance on your salary. You will need appropriate clothing for living in New York City. That dress, while it looks beautiful on you, is not warm enough for the weather turning cold." Before she could argue further, his phone rang. Daewon's entire demeanor changed the moment he looked at the screen. The warm man who had cooked her breakfast disappeared, replaced by someone cold and hard. "I need to take this," he said shortly, already walking toward his study. "Enjoy your day, Juliet." The door closed firmly behind him, and Juliet was left alone in the kitchen, wondering about the many faces of Daewon Choi. She spent the day exploring Manhattan, marveling at the tall buildings and crowded streets. Everything was so different from home. Using the credit card felt wrong, but she did buy a few practical items: a warm coat, comfortable shoes, and some basic supplies. Nothing expensive or extravagant. When she returned to the penthouse in the late afternoon, she found Daewon in the living room with 3 men. They all wore expensive suits and had the same dangerous air about them. The conversation stopped the moment she entered. "Gentlemen, we will continue this discussion later," Daewon said smoothly. "My housekeeper has returned." The men's eyes raked over Juliet with varying degrees of interest and speculation. She felt exposed under their stares, but she lifted her chin and walked steadily toward her room. "The pretty one will not last a week," she heard one of them say in a low voice as she passed. "She has no idea what kind of man she works for." "Careful," Daewon's voice cut like a blade. "Speak about her with respect or do not speak at all." Juliet's heart skipped at his protective tone, but she did not stop walking until she reached her room. Through the closed door, she could hear their voices continuing in what sounded like Korean, the words harsh and argumentative. An hour later, a knock came at her door. She opened it to find Daewon standing there, his jacket off and his tie loosened. He looked tired. "I apologize for earlier," he said. "My associates sometimes forget their manners." "Who are they?" Juliet asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "Business partners. Men who help me run my various enterprises." He studied her face. "The employment agency told you what kind of work I do, yes?" "They said you were a businessman. They did not specify what kind of business." I run clubs, restaurants, and import-export companies, all legal on paper." He paused. "But I also control territory in this city. I protect businesses in exchange for payment. I move money that other people want moved without questions asked. I do things that would make a good woman like you run away screaming." Juliet swallowed hard. "You are telling me you are a criminal." "I am telling you I am powerful, and power in this city requires getting my hands dirty. I wanted you to hear it from me before someone else told you. If you wish to leave, I will not stop you." She should leave. Everything logical in her brain screamed at her to pack her bag and run. But when she looked at Daewon, she did not see a monster. She saw a man who had cooked her breakfast with his mother's recipes, who had defended her honor to his associates, who was giving her the choice to leave freely. "I will stay," she heard herself say, "but I do not want to be involved in your business. I will keep your house, cook your meals, and nothing more." Relief flashed across his face. "Agreed. You will never be touched by that part of my life. I promise you." It was a promise he would not be able to keep, but neither of them knew that yet. Days turned into weeks. True to his word, Daewon pursued her with determination. He brought her flowers every morning, each bouquet more beautiful than the last. He left notes in places she would find them, some funny, some sweet, all of them chipping away at her resistance. He taught her Korean words during dinner, laughing when she mispronounced them. She taught him Swahili phrases, enjoying the way his accent made the familiar words sound new. "Nakupenda," he said one evening, the Swahili words careful on his tongue. "That means I love you, yes?" "Yes," Juliet replied, her heart racing. "But you should not say it unless you mean it." "Who says I do not mean it?" His dark eyes held hers steadily. "I am falling in love with you, Juliet Omondi, more each day." She wanted to dismiss his words as part of the seduction game, but the way he looked at her, the way he had slowly revealed pieces of his true self over the past weeks, made her believe him. The tension between them grew thicker each day. Accidental touches lasted longer. Glances turned heated. The air itself seemed to vibrate when they were in the same room. Then came the night of the storm. Thunder crashed outside, shaking the windows. Lightning illuminated the city in bright flashes. Juliet had always hated storms, and this one was particularly violent. She sat in the living room trying to distract herself with a book when Daewon appeared. "You are afraid," he observed, sitting beside her on the couch. "I do not like thunder," she admitted. "It reminds me of the night my mother died. There was a terrible storm that night." Without asking permission, Daewon pulled her against his side, his arm wrapping around her shoulders. Juliet knew she should pull away, but the comfort of his solid presence was too tempting. She relaxed into him, letting his warmth chase away her fear. "Tell me something," he said softly. "Tell me something you have never told anyone else." "Why?" "Because I want to know every part of you, even the secret parts." Juliet was quiet for a moment, listening to the rain pound against the windows. "I'm afraid I will fail Jabari. What if I cannot earn enough money in time? What if he dies because I was not good enough?" "He will not die," Daewon said firmly. "I will not let that happen." She tilted her head to look up at him. "You cannot promise that." "Watch me." His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb stroking her cheek gently. "I would move heaven and earth for you, Juliet. Your pain is my pain. Your fears are my fears. Do you understand what I am saying?" "Daewon," she whispered, her resolve crumbling. "Say yes," he murmured, his face moving closer to hers. "Say yes to me. Say yes to us." Thunder crashed again, but this time Juliet barely heard it. All she could focus on was the heat in Daewon's eyes, the way his lips were just inches from hers, the feeling of falling that made her dizzy and terrified and excited all at once. "I am afraid," she confessed. "So am I," he admitted, "but I am more afraid of never knowing what we could be together." When their lips finally met, it was like lightning striking. The kiss was gentle at first, testing, exploring. Then it deepened, became hungrier. Daewon's hand slid into her hair while his other arm pulled her closer. Juliet's hands gripped his shirt, holding on as the world spun around her. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. "Stay with me tonight," Daewon whispered. "Just let me hold you. Nothing more, I promise. I just want to feel you close." Every logical part of Juliet's brain screamed that this was a mistake, but her heart, her treacherous heart, was already lost. "Okay," she breathed. "Just for tonight." They moved to his bedroom, and true to his word, Daewon only held her. They lay facing each other in the darkness, talking in whispers, sharing more secrets, laughing softly at shared jokes. His fingers traced patterns on her arm, her shoulder, her face. She had never felt so cherished, so wanted, so seen. As dawn began to break through the windows, Juliet realized with startling clarity that she had fallen completely in love with Daewon Choi, the dangerous, powerful, complicated man who had somehow become her entire world in just a few short weeks. But morning also brought a phone call that would change everything. The phone rang at 7 in the morning, shattering the peaceful bubble Juliet and Daewon had created. He answered it with a sleepy grunt, then sat up sharply, fully alert within seconds. "When?" His voice was cold and hard again. "How much? Did they take?" "No, I will handle it personally. Nobody moves until I get there." He ended the call and turned to Juliet, his expression apologetic. "I have to go. There was a robbery at one of my warehouses. Stay inside today. Do not answer the door for anyone except me." "Is it dangerous?" Juliet asked, worry making her chest tight. Daewon leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. "It is business. I will be fine. But I need to know you are safe here while I deal with this. Promise me you will stay inside. I promise." After he left, Juliet tried to distract herself with cleaning and organizing, but her mind kept returning to Daewon and whatever dangerous situation he was handling. She had fallen in love with a man whose world was filled with violence and crime. What kind of future could they possibly have? Her phone rang, showing a number from Kenya. Her heart leaped. "Jabari? Sister!" Her brother's voice sounded weak but happy. "I have amazing news. The hospital called. Someone paid for my surgery, all of it. They said an anonymous donor covered everything." Juliet's hand flew to her mouth. "What? When?" "Yesterday. The payment came through yesterday. Juliet, I'm getting the surgery next week. They said with this money they can bring in the best surgeon from South Africa. I am going to be okay." Tears streamed down Juliet's face as she listened to her brother's excited chatter. After they said goodbye, she sat on the couch trying to process this miracle. An anonymous donor. Yesterday. Yesterday was when she had told Daewon about Jabari during dinner. Yesterday was when she had cried a little, overwhelmed by worry about how she would earn enough money in time. Daewon had paid for the surgery. She knew it as certainly as she knew her own name. The expensive payment, the timing, the fact that nobody else in the world knew about Jabari's condition except Daewon. He had given her brother life itself. When Daewon returned, that evening, looking exhausted and with a bruise forming on his jaw, Juliet was waiting by the door. The moment he stepped inside, she threw her arms around him and held on tight. "Juliet? What is wrong?" He sounded alarmed, his arms coming around her protectively. "You paid for Jabari's surgery," she said against his chest. "Do not deny it. I know it was you." His body went still. "How did you find out?" "My brother called. The hospital told him about the anonymous donor." She pulled back to look at him, tears still wet on her cheeks. "Why did you do it? That is so much money." "Because I could," Daewon said simply. "Because your pain was hurting me. Because I love you and I wanted to give you peace." "Are you angry?" "Angry? How could I be angry?" Fresh tears spilled over. "You saved my brother's life. You gave me back my family. I do not even know how to thank you." "Love me back," he said softly. That is all the thanks I need. Love me even though I am not a good man. Love me even though my world is dark. Love me, Juliet, and let me love you. I do, she whispered. I already do. I think I started falling for you the first day, even though I fought it so hard. The kiss they shared was different from before. It was a promise, a commitment, a surrendering of two souls to each other. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Come with me, Daewon said, taking her hand. He led her back to his bedroom, and this time there was no pretense of just holding each other. This time, when they came together, it was with full knowledge of what they meant to each other. Juliet had never been with a man before, and Daewon was gentle, patient, worshipping her body as if she were something precious and fragile. You are beautiful, he murmured against her skin, his hands exploring her curves, reverently. Every part of you is perfect. Juliet had always been self-conscious about her full figure, but the way Daewon touched her made her feel like a goddess. His lips traced patterns down her neck, across her shoulders, while his hands mapped every dip and swell of her body. When they finally joined together, Juliet gasped at the intensity of it. Not just the physical sensation, though that was overwhelming, but the emotional connection that seemed to fuse their very souls. Daewon moved slowly, carefully, his dark eyes never leaving hers. I love you, he said again and again, like a prayer. My Juliet, mine. Yours, she agreed breathlessly. Always yours. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the sheets, their hearts gradually slowing to normal rhythms. Daewon traced lazy circles on her bare shoulder, his expression more peaceful than she had ever seen it. I need to tell you something, he said quietly, about my past, about how I became the man I am. Juliet turned to face him fully, giving him her complete attention. I was not born into this life, he began. My father owned a small restaurant in Brooklyn. We were not rich, but we were happy. Then one day, a gang came demanding protection money. My father refused to pay. He said he had worked too hard to give his money to criminals. Daewon's jaw tightened, and Juliet took his hand, squeezing gently. They killed him, he continued, his voice flat. Right in front of me and my mother. I was 15 years old. After that, my mother was never the same. She became sick with grief. The car accident that killed her a year later was not really an accident. She drove into that wall on purpose because she could not live without my father. Daewon, Juliet whispered, her heart breaking for the boy he had been. I was 16 and alone in the world, angry, broken, wanting revenge. A man named Sing-min found me. He ran the Korean Mafia in New York. He took me in, trained me, taught me how to be strong, how to never let anyone hurt me again. I learned everything from him. By the time I was 25, I had taken over his entire operation. Now I am the one everyone fears. But you are not happy, Juliet observed. I was not happy, he corrected. Until you make me want to be better. You make me remember that I am human, not just a weapon. When I am with you, I can breathe again. They talked for hours, sharing their deepest pains and fears. Daewon told her about the nightmares he still had about his parents' deaths. Juliet told him about the guilt she carried for leaving Kenya, for not being there when her father died. They cried together, held each other, and found healing in their shared vulnerability. The next few weeks were the happiest of Juliet's life. She and Daewon were inseparable when he was home. He taught her to cook more Korean dishes. She taught him traditional Kenyan dances, laughing when his rigid body struggled with the fluid movements. I look ridiculous, he complained, but he was smiling. You look perfect, she countered, pulling him close. You look happy. They made love often, each time discovering new ways to please each other. Daewon was an attentive lover, always making sure Juliet reached her peak before finding his own release. He loved to watch her come undone, loved the sounds she made, loved the way she said his name in that breathless voice. But their bubble of happiness could not last forever. One evening, Daewon's second-in-command, Ji-hoon, came to the penthouse for a meeting. Juliet had met him several times and never liked him. There was something cold in his eyes, something calculating. "You have become soft," she heard Ji-hoon say to Daewon. "The other families are starting to notice. They think you are weak because of that African girl." "Watch your mouth," Daewon's voice was dangerous. "I am trying to protect you," Ji-hoon insisted. "Chen Wu is already making moves into our territory. He thinks you are distracted. He thinks he can take what is yours because you are too busy playing house with your pet." The sound of something crashing made Juliet jump. She had been in the kitchen but moved closer to hear better, her heart pounding. "Call her that again and I will kill you myself," Daewon said coldly. "Juliet is not my pet. She is the woman I love. She is going to be my wife. And if you have a problem with that, the door is right there." Silence fell. Then Ji-hoon spoke again, his tone careful now. "I apologize. I spoke out of turn, but the threat from Chen Wu is real. We need to respond." "Then we respond. But do not mistake my love for weakness. I am the same man I always was. More dangerous now, actually, because now I have something worth protecting." After Ji-hoon left, Daewon found Juliet in the kitchen. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "Did you mean it?" she asked. "About making me your wife?" "Every word," he said firmly. "I know it is fast. I know it seems crazy. But I have never been more certain of anything in my life. I want you forever, Juliet. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to build a life with you, a real life, away from all this darkness." "Yes," Juliet said, rising on her toes to kiss him. "Yes to everything. I want forever with you, too." They were so focused on each other that neither noticed the black car parked across the street, or the men inside watching the penthouse with hostile eyes. Neither realized that their happiness had painted a target on both their backs. The storm was coming, and it would test their love in ways neither could imagine. The danger came without warning on a Tuesday afternoon. Juliet was at the penthouse alone, humming while she prepared dinner. Daewon had gone to a business meeting and promised to return by 6. She was making his favorite soup, the one his mother used to make, trying to perfect the recipe he had taught her. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Look outside your window." Confused, Juliet walked to the large windows overlooking the street. A black van was parked below, and as she watched, the side door slid open. Inside, she could see a person tied up. Her heart stopped. Even from this height, she recognized Ji-hoon. Another text came. "Come downstairs alone, tell no one. If you call police or Daewon, Ji-hoon dies. You have 5 minutes." Juliet's hands shook as she read the message. Ji-hoon might not like her, but he was still a person. She could not let him die. She grabbed her phone and coat, then hesitated. Should she call Daewon? But the message had been clear. She made a choice that would haunt her. She went downstairs alone. The moment she stepped outside, rough hands grabbed her. A cloth covered her mouth and nose, smelling chemical and wrong. The world spun, then went black. When Juliet woke, she was in a cold, empty warehouse. Her hands were tied behind her back, and her head throbbed painfully. Ji-hoon was across from her, also tied up, blood running from a cut on his forehead. "Stupid girl," he hissed when he saw she was awake. "Why did you come down? Now they have both of us." "I could not let them kill you," Juliet said, her voice rough. "How touching," a new voice said. A man stepped out of the shadows. He was older, Chinese, with cold eyes and an expensive suit. "The African maid has a hero complex. How unfortunate for her." "Chen Wu," Ji-hoon said, his voice tight with fear. "Smart boy." Chen Wu smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You know, this was supposed to be simple. Grab Ji-hoon, use him to lure Daewon into a trap, kill them both, and take over his territory. But then you came down, pretty girl, and gave me an even better prize." "Daewon will kill you for this," Juliet said, trying to sound brave despite her terror. "Daewon is welcome to try. In fact, I am counting on it. A man in love is a man with weaknesses. He will come for you, and when he does, I will be ready. Chen Wu moved closer, studying her. I can see why he is obsessed. You are quite beautiful. Perhaps I will keep you for myself after Daewon is dead. Juliet spit in his face. Chen. Wu's smile disappeared. He backhanded her so hard her head snapped to the side, and she tasted blood. Touching her was your first mistake, Ji-hoon said quietly. Daewon will burn this entire city down to make you pay for that. Let him try, Chen Wu said, wiping his face. Guards, watch them. If they try anything, shoot the girl first. After he left, Juliet and Ji-hoon sat in silence for a few minutes. Her cheek throbbed where Chen Wu had hit her, and she could feel it swelling. Why did you really come down? Ji-hoon asked finally. You could have called Daewon. He would have saved me. I already told you. I could not let them kill you. Even though I have been nothing but rude to you since you arrived, Juliet managed a small smile despite the pain. Even though life is precious, even yours. Ji-hoon was quiet for a long moment. I was wrong about you. I thought you were just another pretty face trying to trap a rich man. I did not realize you actually love him. With everything I am, Juliet said softly. He loves you too, more than I have ever seen him love anything. That is why I was afraid. Love makes us weak. No, Juliet disagreed. Love makes us strong. It gives us something worth fighting for. Before Ji-hoon could respond, Juliet's phone, which the guards had tossed carelessly on a nearby table, began to ring. She could see Daewon's name on the screen. The phone rang and rang, then stopped. Seconds later, it started again. He knew something was wrong. An hour later, chaos erupted outside the warehouse. Gunshots, shouting, the sound of men fighting. Juliet's heart raced. The guards watching them ran toward the commotion, leaving them momentarily alone. The knot on your right hand, Ji-hoon said urgently. It is loose. Work on it. If you can get free, run. Do not wait for me. Juliet twisted her wrists, ignoring the pain as the rough rope scraped her skin. The knot was tight, but Ji-hoon was right. There was some give. She worked frantically, feeling it slowly loosen. More gunshots, closer now. The warehouse door burst open, and Daewon entered like a dark angel of death. He moved with deadly efficiency, taking down Chen Wu's men with terrifying ease. Behind him, more of his people poured in. Juliet! His eyes scanned the space frantically until they landed on her. Relief flooded his face, immediately replaced by cold rage when he saw her swollen cheek. But before he could reach her, Chen Wu appeared from a hidden door, gun raised. One more step and I shoot her. Daewon froze, his own weapon pointed at Chen Wu. Let her go. Your fight is with me. My fight is with anyone who stands in my way, Chen Wu replied. Drop your gun. The standoff stretched for eternal seconds. Then Ji-hoon did something unexpected. He lunged forward, still tied up, throwing himself at Chen Wu. The gun went off with a deafening crack. Time seemed to slow. Juliet screamed. Daewon fired his weapon. Chen Wu fell backward, blood blooming on his heroic chest. Ji-hoon crumpled to the ground, his eyes wide with shock. Daewon was at Juliet's side instantly, cutting her ropes with a knife. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? His hands ran over her frantically, checking for injuries. I am okay, she said, throwing her arms around his neck. I am okay now. Ji-hoon, Daewon said suddenly, remembering. They both turned to where his second-in-command lay bleeding. I am sorry, Ji-hoon said weakly as Daewon knelt beside him. I was the one who told Chen Wu about Juliet. I was jealous. I wanted your position. But when I saw how brave she was, coming down to save me even though I treated her badly, I realized I was wrong about everything. Save your strength, Daewon said, pressing his hand against the wound. I am getting you to a hospital. Too late, Ji-hoon coughed, blood on his lips. But I am glad. She makes you better. She makes you human. Protect her. Love her. Be happy. His eyes closed, and despite Daewon's efforts, Ji-hoon's breathing stopped. Juliet watched Daewon's face crumble with grief. Even though Ji-hoon had betrayed him, they had been brothers for over a decade. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Daewon's men were already moving, cleaning up, making the scene look less incriminating. Daewon lifted Juliet in his arms and carried her out to his car. They drove in silence back to the penthouse. Once inside, Daewon carefully cleaned the blood from Juliet's face, his movements gentle despite the rage she could feel radiating from him. "I should never have left you alone," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "This is my fault. My enemies, my world, almost got you killed." "It was not your fault," Juliet insisted, "and I am fine. We are both fine." "This time," Daewon said. "But what about next time? What happens when someone else decides to use you against me? I cannot lose you, Juliet. I cannot." "You will not lose me," she said firmly. "We will face whatever comes together." But even as she spoke the words, fear crept into her heart. How many more times would they face danger? How long before their luck ran out? That night, they held each other desperately, two people clinging together against a world that wanted to tear them apart. Outside, sirens continued to wail, and somewhere in the city, other powerful men were already planning their next moves. The game was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Juliet sat beside the bed where Daewon lay unconscious, machines beeping steadily around him. It had been 2 weeks since the warehouse, and they had both thought the danger was over. They had been wrong. Ji-hoon's betrayal had been deeper than anyone realized. Before his death, he had given Chen-woo's brother information about all of Daewon's operations, his safe houses, his routines, everything. The attack had come at dawn, 3 days ago. Juliet had been making breakfast when she heard the gunshots. Daewon had pushed her into the panic room he had installed after the warehouse incident, then gone to face the attackers alone. By the time his men arrived, Daewon had taken down 5 armed men, but not before catching 2 bullets himself, one in the shoulder, one that had come terrifyingly close to his heart. Juliet had not left his side since the surgery. She held his hand, talked to him, begged him to wake up. The doctor said he was stable, but he had not opened his eyes. "Please," she whispered for the 1,000th time, "please come back to me. I love you. I need you. We have so much life left to live together." His fingers twitched in hers. Juliet's head snapped up, hardly daring to hope. "Daewon? Can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened. Those dark eyes she loved so much focused on her face, and relief crashed through her so powerfully, she started crying. "Juliet," he said, his voice hoarse and rough. "You are crying." "Of course I am crying, you stupid man," she said through her tears. "You almost died. You've been unconscious for 3 days. I thought I lost you." He tried to lift his hand to touch her face but winced at the pain. Juliet quickly moved closer, letting him touch her without straining. His fingers were weak but gentle as they traced her cheek. "I am sorry," he said. "I promised to protect you, and instead I brought nothing but danger to your door." "None of this is your fault," Juliet said firmly. "We will get through this, together." But later that day, after Daewon had fallen back asleep, 2 men in suits entered the room. They showed her badges that read FBI. "Miss Omondi, we need to talk to you about Daewon Choi." They explained that they had been investigating Daewon for years. They had evidence of his illegal activities, enough to send him to prison for decades, but they were willing to make a deal. "We want Chen-woo's entire organization," the older agent said. "Your boyfriend's former partner gave us valuable information before he died, but it is not enough. We need Daewon to testify, to give us everything he knows. In exchange, we will give him full immunity and a chance to start over with a clean slate." "And if he refuses?" Juliet asked, her heart pounding. "Then he goes to prison, and you will visit him behind glass walls for the next 20 years. Is that the life you want?" After they left, Juliet sat in the chair beside Daewon's bed, her mind racing. When he woke again hours later, she told him everything. "I will not testify," he said immediately. "There is a code. You do not betray your world. Even if it means losing everything? Losing me?" Juliet's voice broke. "I cannot watch you go to prison, Daewon. I cannot spend the next 20 years visiting you for an hour a week through a glass wall. That will kill me as surely as a bullet would." "What are you saying?" "I am saying take the deal. Testify. Let us start over somewhere new, away from all this violence and death. We can have a normal life, a real life. Is that not what you wanted?" Daewon stared at the ceiling for a long time. "My whole life I have been about loyalty, about protecting my people, about never backing down. If I testify, I become the worst kind of traitor." "Or you become a man brave enough to choose love over pride," Juliet countered. "Those men you are protecting? Most of them would not do the same for you, but I would. I am asking you to choose us, choose our future. Please." 2 days later, Daewon signed the agreement. He would testify against Chen Wu's organization and provide evidence about the corruption that had allowed criminals to operate freely. In exchange, he received full immunity and a promise of relocation once the trials were over. It took 3 months. 3 months of Daewon recovering from his injuries and meeting with federal prosecutors. 3 months of Juliet watching over her shoulder, afraid that someone would come for revenge. 3 months of planning a future that seemed impossible. Chen Wu's brother and most of the organization's leadership were arrested. The trials were quick, the evidence overwhelming. Daewon testified with cold precision, showing no emotion as he helped dismantle the empire he had once been part of. Through it all, Juliet stood by him. She sat in the courtroom every day, a silent show of support. At night, she held him when the weight of what he was doing became too heavy. "I am betraying everything I believed in," he said one night, his voice heavy with guilt. "No," Juliet said firmly, "you are fighting for something better. You are choosing life over death, love over loyalty to a world that only brought pain. That is not betrayal. That is courage." One evening, 2 weeks before the final trial date, Juliet woke feeling strange. She had been tired lately, more than usual, and her stomach had been sensitive. On a hunch, she bought a pregnancy test while out shopping. The 2 pink lines appeared almost instantly. Juliet stared at the test, her hand shaking. Pregnant. She was pregnant with Daewon's child. They had been so careful, but apparently not careful enough. Or perhaps fate had decided they needed this gift. Terror and joy warred inside her. This was not the right time. They were about to start a completely new life, leaving everything behind. Bringing a baby into such uncertainty seemed impossible. But when she thought about a tiny person who was part of her and part of Daewon, her hand moved protectively to her still, flat stomach. This baby would be loved. This baby would be wanted, no matter what challenges they faced. That night, after Daewon finished another preparation session with the lawyers, Juliet made him his favorite dinner. She set the table carefully, adding candles even though it was just a Wednesday night. "What is the occasion?" Daewon asked, smiling at her efforts. "I have something to tell you," Juliet said, her heart racing. "Something important." His smile faded, replaced by concern. "What is wrong? Are you sick?" "No, I am not sick. I am pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Daewon's face went through several emotions too quickly to track. Shock, fear, wonder, and finally, overwhelming joy. He dropped to his knees in front of her, his hands moving to her stomach. "A baby? We are having a baby." "Yes," Juliet said, tears streaming down her face. "I know the timing is terrible and everything is so uncertain, but I want this baby. I want our child." "Terrible timing?" Daewon looked up at her, his own eyes wet. "Juliet, this is perfect timing. This baby is proof that something good can come from all the darkness. This baby is our future." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Juliet gasped. The ring inside was simple and beautiful, just a single diamond on a gold band. "I have been carrying this for weeks, waiting for the right moment," Daewon said. There is never going to be a perfect moment. Our life is messy and complicated and sometimes scary. But I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. Marry me, Juliet Omondi. Be my wife. Let us raise this baby together and build the life we both deserve. Yes, Juliet said, pulling him up to kiss him. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times, yes. They held each other in the candlelight, two broken people who had found healing in each other's arms. Outside the window, the city sparkled with millions of lights. Somewhere out there was their future, uncertain but full of hope. The final trial ended with convictions across the board. Chen Wu's brother received life in prison. The organization was destroyed, and Daewon and Juliet were free to start over. The FBI arranged for new identities, though they could keep their first names. They were given money to relocate, along with stern warnings to never return to New York or contact anyone from their old lives. Where should we go? Daewon asked, holding the pamphlets of different cities. Juliet studied the options, then pointed to one. There, by the ocean. A place where we can hear the waves and feel the sun. A place where our baby can grow up safe and happy. California it is, Daewon agreed, pulling her close. A new beginning for all of us. As they packed up their life, preparing to leave everything behind, Juliet felt a peace she had never experienced before. Yes, they were walking away from everything familiar. Yes, the future was uncertain. But they had each other, they had their baby, and they had hope. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes love was enough. The coastal town of Carmel in California was nothing like New York City. Where New York had been all hard edges and towering buildings, Carmel was soft curves and gentle ocean breezes. The house Daewon found for them was small but perfect, with windows that looked out over the Pacific Ocean and a garden where Juliet planned to grow vegetables. 6 months had passed since they left New York. 6 months of building a new life from scratch. Daewon had used his business skills to start a legitimate security company, helping local businesses protect themselves from theft and cybercrime. The irony was not lost on either of them that the man who once ran criminal operations now helped prevent crime. Juliet had enrolled in nursing classes at the community college. Her belly had grown round with their daughter, and she loved feeling the baby kick while she studied. Jabari had recovered fully from his surgery and was attending university in Kenya, calling them weekly to share his excitement about his studies. Everything had fallen into place like pieces of a puzzle, finding their proper spots. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Daewon asked one evening as they walked along the beach. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the waves rolled gently onto the sand. "A little," Juliet admitted. Tomorrow was their wedding day. They had kept it simple, inviting only a handful of people they had met since moving to California. No big celebration, no expensive party, just two people promising forever to each other. "Me too," Daewon confessed. He stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Sometimes I still cannot believe this is real, that I get to have you, that we made a baby together, that I escaped that life and found something better." "We found each other," Juliet corrected. "That is what matters." "I was a monster, Juliet. I did terrible things. Sometimes I wake up at night and wonder if I deserve this happiness." Juliet placed her hand on his cheek, making him look into her eyes. "You are not that man anymore. People can change. Love changes us. You showed me that. The man who cooked me breakfast, who paid for my brother's surgery, who took a bullet to protect me. That man deserves every bit of happiness we can find." Daewon kissed her palm, then her lips, soft and sweet. "I love you more than words can say." "I know," she said simply. "I feel it every day." They walked back to their house as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the world in twilight colors. Inside, they made dinner together, moving around the small kitchen with the ease of people who knew each other's rhythms. They talked about baby names, about whether to paint the nursery yellow or green, about all the small, ordinary things that made up a life. That night, as they lay in bed, Daewon's hand rested on Juliet's belly. The baby kicked against his palm, and his face lit up with wonder every single time. "She is strong," he said, "just like her mother." "She will be brave too," Juliet added, "just like her father." "I hope she is kind," Daewon said softly. "I hope she never knows the darkness I lived in. I hope she grows up understanding love and joy and peace." "She will," Juliet promised, "because we will teach her. We will show her every day what real love looks like." The wedding took place on the beach at sunrise. Juliet wore a simple white dress that accommodated her pregnant belly, with flowers in her hair that Daewon had picked from their garden. He wore a light gray suit with no tie, looking relaxed and happier than Juliet had ever seen him. The ceremony was officiated by a local minister they had befriended. Standing as witnesses were their landlady, Mrs. Chen, who had become like a grandmother to them, and Marcus, who worked with Daewon and had become his first real friend in this new life. "Daewon," the minister prompted when it was time for vows. Daewon took a deep breath, his eyes locked on Juliet's face. "When I met you, I was a man with no hope. I had money and power, but I was empty inside. You filled that emptiness with light. You showed me that I could be more than my worst choices. You gave me a reason to be better. I promise to love you every day in every way. I promise to protect our family. I promise to never let the darkness I came from touch you or our child. I promise to be the man you believe I can be. Forever, Juliet. I am yours forever." Tears streamed down Juliet's face as she began her vows. "Daewon, you came into my life like a storm. You were frightening and overwhelming and impossible to ignore. But underneath the storm, I found a man with a wounded heart who just needed someone to see him. Really see him. I promise to always see you. I promise to stand beside you through every challenge. I promise to love you when you are strong and when you are weak. I promise to build this life with you, brick by brick, until we have something beautiful and lasting. Forever, my love, forever." They exchanged simple gold bands, and when the minister pronounced them married, Daewon kissed Juliet with such tenderness that even the waves seemed to quiet in respect. After the ceremony, they had breakfast at a small cafe overlooking the ocean. Mrs. Chen had baked them a small cake, and Marcus made a toast that made them all laugh. It was simple, intimate, and absolutely perfect. But as they finished eating, Juliet felt a strange sensation, a tightening in her belly that made her gasp. "What is wrong?" Daewon was at her side instantly, his hand supporting her back. "I think," Juliet said slowly, "I think the baby is coming." "Now? But you are not due for 3 more weeks." Another contraction hit, stronger this time. "Babies do not follow schedules, my love. We need to go to the hospital." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Daewon drove with careful speed to the hospital, holding Juliet's hand whenever he could spare it from the wheel. At the hospital, nurses and doctors moved efficiently, getting Juliet settled into a delivery room. "You are doing great," Daewon said over and over, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. "So strong, so brave. I am right here." Juliet squeezed his hand through each contraction, drawing strength from his presence. She had faced many hard things in her life, but this was different. This was bringing life into the world, her and Daewon's child, the physical proof of their love. When the time came to push, Daewon stood beside her, coaching her through each one. "That is it, my love. You can do this. Our daughter is almost here." With one final push, their baby entered the world with a strong, healthy cry. The doctor placed the tiny, perfect creature on Juliet's chest, and both parents burst into tears. "She is beautiful," Juliet whispered, touching the baby's tiny fingers. "She looks like you," Daewon said in awe. He traced the baby's round face with one gentle finger. "Perfect. Absolutely perfect." "Would you like to cut the cord, Dad?" the doctor asked. Daewon's hand shook as he cut the umbilical cord, officially separating their daughter from Juliet's body, but binding all 3 of them together as a family. After the nurses cleaned and weighed the baby, they wrapped her in a soft blanket and handed her to Daewon. He stood frozen, holding his daughter like she was made of precious glass. The big, dangerous man who had once ruled New York's underground world looked completely terrified of the 6-pound baby in his arms. "I am going to mess this up," he whispered. "I do not know how to be a father." "Yes, you do," Juliet said from the bed. "Love her, protect her, be there for her. That is all any father needs to do. And you already love her so much. I can see it on your face." Daewon looked down at his daughter, who had stopped crying and was now looking up at him with dark, unfocused eyes. Something in his expression shifted, softened, transformed completely. "Hello, little one," he said softly. "I am your father. I am not perfect, and I have made many mistakes. But I promise you this. I will spend every day of my life making sure you are safe, loved, and happy. I will never let anyone hurt you. I will teach you to be strong and kind. I will show you that your past does not define your future. Welcome to the world, my daughter." "What should we name her?" Juliet asked. They had discussed many options but never quite settled on one. Daewon looked at Juliet, then back at their daughter. "Nia. It means purpose. She is our purpose. She is why we fought so hard to build this new life." "Nia," Juliet repeated, testing the name. "Perfect. Nia Omondi Choi, our beautiful purpose." Later, after the nurses had taken Nia for routine checks and Juliet had been moved to a recovery room, the three of them lay together. Nia was swaddled and sleeping peacefully between her parents. "We did it," Juliet said quietly. "We actually did it. We escaped. We started over. We got married, and now we have our daughter. Sometimes it feels like a dream." "If it is a dream, I never want to wake up," Daewon replied. He kissed Juliet's forehead, then Nia's tiny head. "Thank you. For what?" "For seeing me. For loving me when I did not deserve it. For giving me a reason to change. For this perfect little girl. For everything. You saved me too," Juliet reminded him. "I was alone in a strange country, desperate and afraid. You gave me safety, love, and a family. We saved each other day one. That is what love does." Over the next few days, they settled into a rhythm at the hospital before taking Nia home. Jabari video called from Kenya, crying happy tears when he saw his niece. Mrs. Chen brought them meals and practical advice. Marcus stopped by with a giant stuffed elephant that was bigger than the baby. When they finally brought Nia home to their little house by the ocean, it felt complete in a way it had not before. Daewon set up the nursery with careful precision, making sure everything was perfect. Juliet rocked their daughter while looking out at the waves, singing Kenyan lullabies her own mother had sung to her. 1 month after Nia's birth, on an unusually warm evening, the three of them sat on the porch watching the sunset. Nia was alert and looking around with curious eyes. Daewon held her confidently now, no longer afraid he might break her. "Do you ever miss it?" Juliet asked. "The power, the money, the life you had before?" Daewon considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss the certainty of it. In that world, I knew who I was and what I was supposed to do. This world is messier, more complicated. But no, I do not miss it. Not really, because that life was empty. This life with you and Nia, this is full. This is real." "I love you," Juliet said simply. "I love you too, both of you, my girls, my whole world." Nia cooed as if agreeing, and they both laughed. The ocean waves rolled onto the shore in their eternal rhythm, and somewhere out in the world, other people were fighting their own battles, making their own choices between darkness and light. But here, in this small house by the sea, a former criminal and the woman who had saved him had built something precious and rare, a family founded on love, redemption, and hope. They had started in danger and darkness, but they had found their way to light. They had been broken separately, but together they had become whole. They had taken the twisted paths of their pasts and used them to build a better future. And as the sun set on another perfect day, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Daewon and Juliet knew, without question, that every struggle, every fear, every moment of doubt had been worth it to arrive at this moment. This was their forever. This was their happy ending. This was home. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed Juliet and Daewon's journey from danger to love, please subscribe to our channel for more amazing romance stories. We would love to hear from you in the comments. Tell us where you are watching from and which part of their story touched your heart the most. Your support means everything to us.